ESPN just made one of the boldest moves in WNBA marketing, and fans are not having it. The network recently announced its first ever Rivals Week for the WNBA, with Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever facing off against Angel Reese's Chicago Sky as the headlining matchup. On the surface, it's an obvious pick. Two of the most talked about rookies from last season, both drawing headlines and huge numbers. But when you look closer, things get messy.
Supporters, let's talk about WNBA Rivalry Week. That's right. As ESPN and the WNBA try to tell you, these teams are rivals. Not the Aces and the Fever, not Asia and Caitlin Clark, but...
On paper, this should be fireworks. Clark versus Reese. A rematch of college tension now spilled onto the professional stage. But fans are pointing out a simple fact. This isn't a rivalry. Not yet. Last season, Indiana took the series against Chicago 3-1, and most analysts agree. The Fever are looking even stronger this year, while the Sky may be heading for a rough season.
Of doing, and she carries that team to some extra victories, provided they don't sideline her for you-know-who, right? But this is what, oh God. And look, fans of the WNBA are crushing the WNBA, crushing ESPN for trying to make, by the way, the Fever and the Sky, Fever won 3 games last year.
That's why this announcement has felt more like a marketing stunt than a sports rivalry. And fans aren't buying what ESPN is selling. They're flooding social media with reactions that range from eye rolls to outright frustration. Because while Clark and Reese certainly have a shared history, turning that into a fully fledged rivalry, especially one to launch an entire themed week, feels rushed and forced.
Because I don't know. So the WNBA is kicking off its first ever Rivals Week. In other words, we're just making up new shit during the 2025 season, set to start August 9th. And to no one's surprise, Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, will face Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky.
Let's take a step back. Rivalries are a cornerstone of sports media. Think Lakers versus Celtics, Brady versus Manning, even LeBron versus. Steph had a natural buildup, but in all those cases, the tension came from the court, playoff matchups, close games, and emotional stakes, not just name recognition.
The game will be showcased on CBS. That's going to draw a big rating. It will. The Fever Sky won't be the only highlighted during Rivals Week. WNBA Finals rematch between the Liberty and the Lynx. Okay, makes sense. Brittany Griner will face off against the Mercury with her new squad, the Atlanta Dream. Okay.
So what's the motive here? Simple. Money. ESPN and the WNBA are betting that Caitlin Clark can do what no player has done before, turn consistent national attention to a league that, until recently, struggled to break through the mainstream. The league's new broadcast schedule reflects that belief. 41 out of 44 Indiana Fever games will be nationally televised. That's not just historic, it's unprecedented.
It was just announced that 41 out of 44 of the Indiana Fever games will be nationally televised. So this is great news not only for the Indiana Fever, but also for the WNBA, right? So why is everyone upset?
To put that in perspective, even top NBA or NFL teams don't always get that kind of exposure unless they're championship contenders. So why is this happening with a team that didn't even make the finals last year? Because the Clark effect is real. She's not just a star, she's a ratings magnet. When she plays, people watch.
We're talking about NBA, we're talking about NFL. It is no secret that the Indiana Fever are by far the most popular team in the WNBA. And I'm so glad that we're finally just, I don't know if admitting it is the right word, but they're finally acting on it. And you guys, I'm happy that they're acting on it because this news is not only just good for the Indiana Fever and Indiana Fever fans, it is good for the entire WNBA. So I have the broadcast schedule here. We have ABC, NBA TV, Prime Video.
And that's why the Sky Fever matchup got fast-tracked into the spotlight. It's not about competitiveness. It's about viewership. It's about headlines. And honestly, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Growth in women's sports often requires marketing leverage. But what fans are pushing back against is the way it's being done, with manufactured storylines and recycled tension.
realizing because there's so many Indiana Fever games on national TV, that also means that all of the other teams will also be on national TV. The game against the Chicago Sky, the home opener, on ABC. The game against the New York Liberty, also on ABC. How about a Tuesday at 8 p.m. on ESPN against the New York Liberty? They are playing all of the teams in the WNBA also on national television.
The fact that these games are finally being shown on national TV is a win for fans, for players, and for the sport. The media exposure gives every player a shot at recognition. And let's be real, before Clark's arrival, the WNBA was struggling to get these slots at all.
To diminish the wave that was happening, the Clarkonomics that were happening, the Caitlin Clark effect that was happening, everyone trying to diminish that and not just riding the wave and realizing it is not only going to be good for this Indiana Fever team, it's going to be great for everyone. It's going to be great for every single player in the WNBA and also every single team in the WNBA. There has been so much chatter lately about the CBA negotiations and if there will be.
Still, for every gain, there's a backlash. Some critics argue that this kind of overexposure puts Clark on a pedestal while alienating her peers. Others go further, accusing the WNBA and ESPN of racial favoritism. These are deep-rooted tensions fueled by years of underrepresentation and uneven coverage.
It feels like that team's going to drop off even more. Now, there's a chance that Tyler Marsh comes in there and has something totally different planned for the Sky. All right? I also think there's a chance, let me just talk about that right quick. I think there's a chance Angel Reese fans are furious with that new coach by the end of the season, maybe not even by the end of the season.
And unfortunately, some commentators have taken the discourse to toxic levels. Some use this moment to fan the flames, suggesting that Clark is being bullied for being white, or that she should avoid acknowledging the black women who built the league. It's a messy, dangerous narrative, and it distracts from the actual game on the court.
Let's see what else we got here. Oh boy. It appears that the constant bullying and beating up of WNBA legend Caitlin Clark has pressured her to go fully woke. As the Fever star doubled down on her white privilege during an interview with wokeness himself, David Letterman, when asked to address comments made by Asia Wilson about Clark's race, led to a great embrace by fans and brands in which Caitlin agreed. Caitlin Clark, I definitely have privilege. I'm obviously white, but I think I'm someone who grew up watching the league. So I know where the league comes from. A lot of black women that grew up making this league what it is. Yeah, they did.
Let's be clear. Clark has never disrespected the women who came before her. In fact, she's gone out of her way to credit those players, many of whom are now her teammates or rivals. But when sports media gets involved, especially with strong biases, those quotes get twisted, repurposed, and used to serve an agenda.
You don't stand on anybody's shoulders. They stand on yours. I mean, that league was a mess. And frankly, Caitlin, that league got exposed as being a mess by your success. That league got exposed as having sexist, racist, ridiculous human beings, jealous, everything that my wife, the lovely Lee Ross Dockett, said it was. That's right. Everything my wife said women are in sports, because remember, we were the first to tell you.
So, what happens now? If ESPN continues to push this rivalry week based on hype instead of history, they risk alienating the very audience they're trying to grow. Fans of the WNBA are passionate. They know the league, they follow the players, and they can tell when something is authentic or not.
Really a rivalry here. Not sure why people continue to push the narrative. ESPN, you're a joke. Stop pushing narratives we don't care for. Caitlin versus Asia. Now that's a narrative. Fake rivalry. The fake rivalry between CC and AR is getting old. Let's move on.
The irony is that there are real rivalries brewing in the WNBA. Aja Wilson versus Caitlin Clark, Liberty versus Aces, even Fever versus Lynx. These games have potential because they're built on actual stakes, playoff implications, coaching mind games, even fan base friction. That's the foundation of great sports drama, not just media projection.
I mean, fans were just ripping their asses all the way down on ESPN's page, WNBA's page. Not much better at all. People, it's clear. People are like, I think the Minnesota Lynx.
Still, this whole situation proves one thing. People are finally talking about the WNBA. Whether they're for or against ESPN's narrative, engagement is up. That's good for business. It's good for the league, and it's good for the players who have been fighting for this spotlight for years.
It wasn't because the Indiana Fever were coming in town, like they made up some weird excuse. And you truly have to get to a point. If you care about the growth of the game, if you don't care about the growth of the game, and you don't care about every other player in the WNBA, then don't change a thing. Keep it to the small arena. Don't change a thing. Don't promote that game. Boycott watching the Indiana Fever games. You are only doing that.
But the challenge now is balance. How do you highlight a generational talent like Clark without sidelining the rest of the league? How do you market narratives without faking storylines? And how do you sustain attention once the novelty wears off?
When they're on national TV, they have a chance to be in front of the biggest audiences that they've ever been in front of before. When they play in these arenas where there are 15 to 20,000 people in the stands, they are in front of people that they haven't been in front of before. That is an opportunity for all of us fans to get to know all the players on the court, all of the players in the WNBA, to pick new favorite players, to pick...
Caitlin Clark can't carry the WNBA alone, nor should she have to. The league is full of talent, veterans and rookies alike, who deserve their share of the spotlight. And while ESPN might be counting on Clark to boost numbers, they'd be wise to ensure the rest of the league gets lifted up in the process.
Whether it was the New York Liberty doing it, whether it was the Phoenix Mercury doing it, I don't care what team. This is great news for women's basketball, period. The momentum is still going, and dare I say, the momentum seems to be even crazier than it was in year one. The Clark crazies, the Caitlin Clark effect seems to be crazier than year one.
Because if this strategy fails, if fans stop watching because they feel manipulated, it could backfire hard. Manufactured rivalries can only go so far. At the end of the day, the product has to deliver. And in the WNBA, the product is better than it's ever been. The key is making sure people believe it, not just because ESPN tells them to, but because they see it for themselves.
We are now getting to see the best players in the world on the biggest stage, in the biggest arenas. Embrace it, take the moment. If you actually care about women's basketball, that's what you're going to be doing, and you're not going to be fighting this every single way and saying, let's boycott the Indiana Fever, let's not tune in, let's illegally stream the games. I'm actually seeing this online. It's kind of crazy. And if you're saying things like that, you don't care about anyone in the league.
So whether you're Team Fever, Team Sky, or just a fan of great basketball, remember this moment. This is the tipping point. The eyes are here. The stage is set. And now the league has to prove it was worth tuning in for.
This Indiana Fever team, I'm excited to follow other players that I'm a huge fan of. Let's do it. Let's make this season positive, okay? And that's what I've been trying to do also with my content. Let's turn the drama, let's turn the weird narratives around, and let's make this positive. Like, this is a positive wave. We should all be happy about this. So with that, I'm ranting and rambling.
Let us know what you think. Is ESPN manufacturing drama to sell the WNBA? Or is this the kind of media push women's sports finally deserve? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates, insights, and breakdowns every new video.